Hey everyone, and welcome to the Powerhouse. This is a very special episode with my very first guest ever from New York City. He is a native Brooklynite who started Made in Brooklyn tours in 2011. He is a creative, he is ingenious, and he is an entrepreneur. Let's welcome Dom Gervasi. Welcome, Dom.
Hi, how are you? It's
I'm
Dom Gervasi.
Gervasi.
It's okay.
Perfect. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And how is your morning?
It's wonderful. It's an honor to be here, JG. I'm looking forward to this interview. My head is inflated. I'm so honored to be here and to share some of my story, maybe some helpful advice,
Hmm.
and also maybe to learn something from you and your audience.
Awesome. I love that. I believe as a leader, not only do we make decisions based on our experiences, but at the same time, we also look at the people we are serving. As a leader, we're responsible for other people's lives as well.
I agree. I think you need to listen.
Hmm.
Um, It's hard. There are people that could be your teachers, at least in one area or another, and it's important wherever possible to listen. In fact, that's part of my process. If I like
Hmm.
with this year, I'd like to do some. I like to continue to develop my business, and I'm thinking to myself, well, who should I speak with? Who should I talk to? Who should I bounce
Hmm.
ideas off of?
Right.
So that's really important.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we're always a student, right? At whatever age we are, I believe that as a leader, we're always a student of life, of other people's stories. And right now, I am your student, Dom. And my students and the people who are listening are your student right now. And they're all curious. We're all curious. So tell us your story.
Wow. That's a great question, buddy. What's your story and what's your superpower? And who's your worst enemy? That's important. What's my story? So let's say I'll try to keep it more focused on business. We were talking a little bit before you started to record how growing up in South Brooklyn in a neighborhood called Bensonhurst, I come from Italian American heritage, and my parents were adamant, especially my father, that I would become a doctor. And you know, that's going back to his culture in Italy that you're the smart one, you're the egghead, so you're going to become the doctor. And I didn't want to become a doctor. So there was this challenge, and who's challenging me is the most powerful person in my life, my father, right? Um, in in the end, he was very, very, I wouldn't say persuasive. It was very domineering, and I wound up, going to NYU for pre med, and I went for a semester. I was doing everything I could to convince him and other family members that no, I don't want to do this, and they were unconvinced, unpersuaded. And so for the next semester, I went to NYU and I played pool every single day I was there. I went to the recreation hall and played pool. And then after that experience, I destroyed my GPA. I decided I do want an education, and so I wound up going to Baruch College, which I'm very grateful for that they understood what was going on, why it was that my GPA had gone so low. And I went to Baruch College and eventually graduated with a bachelor's degree in marketing. After that, now I've always been a geek. So what does that mean? So I worked for software stores, actual software stores, where instead of going in and you'd see books on the shelves, you see shrink wrapped software, like my were, right? And so I had to pay for school. And my girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, you're good with computers. Why don't you, when you have a customer, if they want to learn how to use the software, if they want to have something, installed on their computer, why don't you offer to help them?" And so I created a small business called the Help Key. The Help Key, to press the I think it's the F1 button. That's the Help Key. The Help Key printed out business cards, and customers would come in. And after I would help them, and I was working at a place called Software Etc. at the time. And then I would hand out the business cards, and they would hire me. And I was this newbie. So I'm from South Brooklyn. At the time, there was no MapQuest or Google Maps, and I'm going into Manhattan. The store was on 18th Street and Fifth Avenue, and there were all these small businesses and small and entrepreneurs and professionals who were coming to that flagship store, and that was they were asking for help, and I would go to their homes and go to their offices and help them with their software and help them teach them Word Perfect and teach them MS DOS. That's what I'm teaching them. Yeah, and that's how I financed my education. Okay, so now the one regret I have is that I didn't actually continue on with that business and let that develop. I still had it ingrained in me that, oh, after going to school, then you have to be employed by someone else. Okay, that was the attitude. So, so I wind up working for technology companies, companies that produced hardware for data communications and later on data and voice communications and network security. So, working for businesses primarily in New Jersey and also Manhattan that produced firewalls, VPN gateways, other types of infrastructure that you would find in data centers, data communications, cable assemblies. And that was my career. And it was really wonderful, I got to say, because I was a sales guy. I was a sales guy wearing a suit every day. I would, drive to the office, and then I would go into Manhattan and I was slaying dragons. So I would look at the skyscrapers, like there's dragons in these skyscrapers, and they're sitting on mounds of gold. And I would go in there and I would see two, three, four, five customers a day. And these were the largest financial institutions in the world. And there were companies like Bear Stearns and Cantor Fitzgerald and Lehman Brothers and Moody's Investor Service and others. And as a salesperson, there's a lot of failure. There's cold calling and being hung up on and not reading the right person and being routed to the wrong person. Deals that you don't get, and with sales, you just keep on going. You just keep, there's that old expression, it's a numbers game. So you keep on calling and calling until you get someone that'll agree to see you. So that was especially in the 90s, that was amazing time for me. Working for the most, in my opinion, the most innovative companies in the world in a field that not too many people understood at that time. And it wasn't software. It was literally hardware. Modems, a modem that would cost like $1,200, or a firewall, a physical box. I sold boxes. Okay, so they were tangible, required me meeting with people face to face. It required me making presentations to them. It required engaging them, going out to lunch with them, and understanding their needs. And in the end, there would be a physical product that they would get, and they would see, oh, there it is. It's there in their data set. I can actually see it at work. And yeah, I brought that there. Yeah. Over the years, things started to change. The nature of the business started it used to be I would visit a customer and meet them face to face, and we would make a deal at lunch, maybe draw something on a napkin of what he wanted or she wanted. And then we would produce, this was especially when I first got out of college, we would produce what the customer wanted, ship it to them, and then later on they would send an internal purchase requisition to their purchasing department, and then we would receive the purchase order after the product was delivered. That's how crazy it was. And the sense of trust was like I wanted them as my contact to succeed, and they wanted me and my business to succeed. And it was this wonderful symbiotic relationship. And then things got more and more distant. There were a lot of consultants now. People who worked for the company now became consultants for the company. There were more and more layers between me and the decision maker. Cloud computing became a thing, so the technology started to change. And of course, we had 911, and in my business, the .com boom and bust, right, simultaneously. You know, working for Lucent Technologies just before 911, and in August, me and my whole team were laid off. I was a market developer for the Asia Pacific and North America. And anyway, after that, the recession, right? The recession. And it was at that period of time that many people were deciding they wanted to make a career change. And I was one of those people. The company I was working for 25 years prior, they were a pioneer in network security, and they basically imploded, and I lost my job. The company went out of business, basically. Okay, and at that same time, there was this maker movement that was bubbling up, and 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 I was miserable. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something. I don't know what. And I adopted this attitude of curiosity. Or I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to just take myself out of what I'm familiar with and go somewhere else. And I went on vacation in the past, of course, but this time I was like more interested in what people were making, the crafts, the makers. And so first I went to the island of Crete, this mythical island, the Minoans, and all that stuff. And I don't speak Greek. I don't read Cyrillic, you know. And I was driving around and playing chicken on the main highway that goes across Crete with the other drivers there, and I was being exposed to the craft of working with leather, for example. And when I got home, I felt, oh, I want to go out again. This time I'm going to go to Sicily, and that's where family in Sicily. And Sicily is also a very special place, enshrouded in myth. Really, a kind of place that, as one gets immersed in Sicilian culture, at least for me, it really does invigorate the imagination. And so there, I was discovering the ceramicists. They also make sea salt there, and other things. And so when I got home, I was like, well, I'm from Brooklyn. They make cool stuff in Crete, and they make cool stuff in Sicily. What do we make in Brooklyn? Right. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna find out. And so I get up in the morning, I'll go on Google Earth, do searches, Google searches of things that were made in Brooklyn, and they were roasting coffee, and they were making whiskey, and they were making chocolate, and they were doing all these things, making furniture, and they were making works of glass and ceramics and so on. And I would get on my bicycle, and I had a clipboard. A clipboard, let's see, yeah, clipboard like this. And I had a map on the clipboard. And I was wearing olive drab, and I'm this bald guy wearing, like army fatigues. And I'm riding my bike, and I have on my clipboard, I have the map of all I want to visit. So ride all over Brooklyn, Bushwick, Canarsie, Red Hook, Dumbo, Gowanus, Williamsburg, Greenpoint. And I would discover these places, and I would look around because, I really don't know what I was doing. And there would be a new place that's making chocolate, or a coffee roaster that's been around for ages. And there I was walking around, this bald guy in the summer sweating and holding onto my clipboard and looking very serious. I look very serious when I'm looking at the clipboard. You would think I'm an inspector. I'm checking him out. Somebody would come out. Oh, kind sir, how can I help you? They'll say, "Oh, I'm just interested in what you're doing here." I gotta say, one of the things about Brooklyn is very welcoming. Yeah, we have this rough, hard side, but we could also be very generous. People were happy to show me around, show me what they were doing, and I was fascinated with it. And it was all for me. It was not for anybody else, it was for me. I would get up, go on my bike ride all over Brooklyn, discover all these places, and I was doing it for me. Like, you know what? I gotta do something with my life. Maybe this is something I could look into. And so the idea started to percolate in my mind that, hey, maybe I could start a tourism business. I like I like meeting people from around the world. I mean, here in this neighborhood, there are people from China, from Russia, from Egypt, from all parts of the world, from Albania, from Montenegro, from Italy, from Greece. And I was like, I like that. And I like to travel. I've been to 23 countries at this point. I was like, tourism, yeah. And I love that things are made in Brooklyn, that there are these creative, entrepreneurial, ingenious people here in Brooklyn. So I started to look into this. And there was an organization, I think they've changed the name. It's called New York City and Company. Basically, they're the Tourism Bureau of New York City. Went there and I pitched my idea, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. That so it's sounded great. They have lots of there's so many people employed by the tourism industry here in New York City. I'm just this guy with his idea, and there was a course called Fast Track that was offered by New York City Small Business Services, and Fast Track was designed for entrepreneurs who wanted to crystallize, to concretize their idea. And so I went to this course, and there were all sorts of entrepreneurs who were just conceptualizing their business ideas. And it was really wonderful to kind of get vetted by them. The teachers were very helpful too. And we were encouraged to present to one another. So there were people making, for example, chocolate candy that was sexual in nature, for example, or as someone who came up with an idea to suck up sawdust as you're making furniture. It was really interesting. And then I my idea was made in Brooklyn, Florida. And sure enough, nobody had the URL, and the teacher was like, "You got to get that URL. You got to get." So I bought Made in Brooklyn tours, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, and I had all these ideas, but the hard thing was, how do you make manufacturing and industry into something that is delightful and interesting for people who are not, you know, manufacturers or not into industry? And I came up with this slogan: see who's making it in Brooklyn. Okay? So it wasn't about how they made things. It wasn't about, it wasn't factory tours. The thing was who was making it in Brooklyn. And so the stars of the show are the people who are making it in Brooklyn and the people who represent them. Um, I feel a good way to go is to start out with pretending you're a superhero. And as a superhero, every superhero has an origin story. And every superhero has superpowers. And every superhero has an arch enemy. And so I was like, all right, what is your origin story? And in my case, my origin story, I just gave you my origin story, and I would really make that more and more concise. And when you go and visit a business that made something, made, let's say, soap, or made some sort of spirit, or something else, I would be very, very interested in their origin story and what their superpower was. You know, we now know how to make soap, right? It's not you don't have to invent the process of making soap. There's a way that you approach making soap that is different than everybody else. What is your story? What is your story? What's your origin story? What got you into this? And I would learn that. And I would learn what makes their superpower, their soap, for example, what makes it different than anybody else's soap. And what's their arch enemy? what's the problem they're trying to solve? You know, you want to are they using sustainable ingredients or is it cruelty free ingredients? Is the fragrance not overpowering? And so on. And I would learn that. So on the tours, we would visit businesses and people, great things. Now, there's also the place, the actual neighborhood. And I was very careful to choose neighborhoods that had its own origin story and somehow related to industry. So in the past, we had in the United States, the second industrial revolution from like, let's say the mid to late 19th century into the first quarter of the 20th century. And there's so many inventors and innovators from that time. And there's so much evidence that you can still see the buildings, you can still see the edifices, you can still see the rail where the raw materials were transported, and that becomes the tapestry, the context that the small of the stories of each of the small businesses that we visit on the tours. It's not like, oh, people think, oh, we just visit places and that's it. There's me too. I got to tell the story of the place. There's all this other stuff going on there, and it's very, very interesting people who had vision just like these small businesses. The business owners had vision, and that's part of the story too. When I first started out, I don't know what I was doing. I thought, oh, I'll offer it for free. Nobody. Well, there is a business that offers quote unquote free tours, but at the end of the tour, I'm pretty sure they say, "Please give me something." So, but seriously, I thought, all right, free doesn't work. Well, fortunately, there's also some luck. There's some luck. At that time, Groupon was on, and Living Social, and I think Amazon Local was another one. They were offering these coupons, and it was a terrible deal for me, right? It was like I'm making like a less than a quarter of what I should be making, but they were doing all the promoting. And they were the one that were getting people to sign up for the tours. So it had like a huge train of people behind me coming on tours thanks to Groupon, Living Show, Social, and so on. And I was these poor people. They were- and and I was really serious. I was really, I still am very serious. I was really looking into it, but the tours were lasting like 5 hours. These poor people in the summertime, and you know what? They were phenomenal. The people were great. I very, very, very rarely have a negative experience with my guests on the tour, and the guests are very generous. They're very good. They're coming from all over the world, all over the country, and they're spending time with me. What an honor, and I have to make sure I'm there on time because they've made plans maybe months ago. You know? And then I'm also serving the place. So my feeling is the places that we visit, I'm serving too. I'm demonstrating that they're special, that they are a destination that's attractive. And to me, this is the magic of storytelling. I think that's really important to me to learn how to tell a compelling story, an inspiring story. And so over time, I've designed tours for Bensonhurst, Dumbo, Red Hook, Gowanus, South Slope, Williamsburg, Coney Island, and I'm sure I'm missing places too. Because because over the years things have changed. Of course, we had COVID as well, and then after COVID, basically reigniting my business and starting again. And it was this whole interval. I never stopped working, even during COVID.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. And you mentioned that this word curiosity, it's something that you seems like in your story that you leaned on multiple times in your life and you anchored it and it actually solved the problem, which is like how do you make people curious about what you're doing so that you're able to take them through this tour? So you ignite that to them. Tell me the point wherein you were able to say curiosity was something that I had to really hold on to and what happened.
Well, I think it's important that when one starts something, that one is humble. You have to have humility. I don't know everything. Okay. And so not knowing is the place of infinite possibilities. And you
That's
need
beautiful.
curious and adopt an attitude of curiosity. Don't start out saying, believing that I know what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Start out with this attitude and learn and be a sponge. Okay. One of the things that, I have certain mantras that come to mind,
Go ahead.
like write the story of your life that you want to read. But that's important to me. Making choices is a big deal, especially from my background. You only could be a doctor. That's all you could be. Nothing else, just a doctor. And there's a saying, it's attributed to a couple of people, but the one I know is a man named Jack Cornfield. He's a Buddhist teacher, author, and clinical psychologist. And it's unless you program your own mind,
Right.
the world will program it for you.
Wow.
So how many times someone will come up to me? So I'm Italian American. Oh, you should do a mafia tour. A mafia tour? I'm not gonna do a mafia. First of all, they're still around, but I'm not gonna do that. That's what you maybe vicariously through me want to do.
Right. Right.
But what do I want to do? That's really important to keep on going back to that, because if I go out the door not knowing, not making choices, someone else is going to make the choices for me. It even goes with your calendar. If I put something on my calendar, guaranteed that someone else will want my time for that same time and date. And it's
Right. Right.
a challenge. And if I don't know, if I'm not making the choice, then I could be pulled here and there and never actually write that story of my life that I want to read.
That's both scary and at the same time enlightening, because writing your story actually is giving yourself the power to decide, to choose. And a lot of people are scared of being wrong and making a mistake because what if other people know better than me? I think that type of mindset. What would you tell our listeners who are in that frame where they're too scared to make a mistake, they're too scared to move, and they say, I'll let other people who are smarter than me or well experienced write my story so that it becomes more like a positive outcome? What's your take there?
Yes. Number one, it is scary. There's risk. There's risk and there's reward. How scary was it for me? The way I used to describe it, it was as if I was in a 1970s Cadillac g-
Okay.
going down a steep hill. The brakes are shot. There's a body of water in front of me, and I have to make a hard right turn. That's what it was like for me. I
Oh,
I cried sometimes because I don't know what I was doing. I
right.
I was throwing things away. And one other thing I would say that helped, yeah, I was definitely humble. I don't know what I was doing really, but I think one thing that helped me was, there's this kind of business 101. What can you do and what do you want to do? And the intersection of those two things, that's what you go for, right?
Ah, that's a good framework.
And so would start with, well, what can I do? There's always a starting point. I don't confuse the starting point with the end point. That's what a lot of people do. I could do this, so we're gonna do, that's what it's gonna look like in the future. But there is a starting point. And what could I do? Well, as I was conceptualizing Made in Brooklyn tours, I was like,
Right.
well, I'm from Brooklyn. Number one, I am literally from freaking Brooklyn. Not everybody can say they're from Brooklyn. A lot of people come from other parts of the world to live in Brooklyn, and that's great. That's wonderful. Great.
Right.
Awesome. But I am literally from Brooklyn. I was literally made in Brooklyn. Okay. So that's number one. I worked for companies that produced hardware, made products. They were makers. Okay. That's really cool. I think that's not a lot of people could say not everyone could say they work for a company that made things. And
Of
this is, by
course.
the way, this isn't even new. I mean, when I was younger, I worked for Martin Paints. They made paint.
Right.
Okay. I worked for Radio Shack. They had the Tandy brand of computers. They made them in the United States. So that's nothing really new for me. It's really kind of, over the years, I've seen manufacturing leave the United States, but that's a whole other story. But any case, that was another thing. I know how to work with companies, with businesses that make things.
Right.
What was the other thing? I was a sales guy. I would make presentations. So I decided, all right, my tours are going to take the form of presentations. So I have a presentation book, and I will use slides on my tours to depict what was in a certain place, or different ideas. And that, so I'm good at presenting. I'm good at art, I'm told that I'm good at articulating, at communicating. Well, I was working for these technology companies. I'll come home, I'll come to see my mom, have espresso with her, and she
Right.
would ask me what I did all day. I was like, how do, how do I explain to you, what I did with all this, data communications stuff? And I had to learn how to make complicated subjects digestible to someone
Right.
who no experience, who's not in that world. So that's something I'm good at. Uh, and there are other things too. I'm tall. A lot of people, they come up to me and they just presume that I know where I'm going. I'm in New York City. So I guess they like someone, a guide. Guide is a sort of a leader, is leading
Right.
the right, and I'm good at that. And I like people. I like to learn. I'm still curious. So all the time, people come on my tours. They give me a perspective. If they're coming from Texas, from Dallas, I'm not from Dallas. They're willing to share. A lot of times they're the new in towners and the back in towners in my tour. So they're new in town. They're from another part of the country. They want to learn about Brooklyn. They want to somehow capture that pride in Brooklyn. And so I will learn in turn a little bit about from where they're from.
Right.
Or they're the back in towners. So there are people that, they're older than me. They grew up in Brooklyn, maybe a part of Brooklyn that I didn't grow up in, and they are more than willing to share what it was like back in the day.
During their time.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful for that. Like I said, my guests are awesome. So they share about that as well, and often guests get inspired, and it's a wonderful thing.
We got a question here from one of our listener. They mentioned that what do you wish people understood about leadership that they usually miss when they only see the out?
Well, maybe a way to put it is, I'll take it from the standpoint of industry. You
Right.
see big company, let's say Mack Truck, that's a brand, I think they're owned by Volvo, right? And they make these huge big trucks with the bulldog on the hood, the ornament on the hood. And it's like, all right, well, they're a huge company, But in the end, I learned that they started in Brooklyn. I think it was three brothers that started it.
Uh-huh.
And they started in the very, very end of the 19th century, I believe. And they wind up their first motorized vehicle was a tour bus that went through Prospect Park. And now they're this big company, well-known brand. And they probably made a gazillion mistakes, before they figured out what direction to go in. So what you see when you see what you believe is a leader is the
Uh-huh.
the finished product.
Yes.
Okay. And there are all these things that happen in that person's life, in that leader's life, that they challenges that they had to overcome, adversities they had to face, stakes, stuff that had, that they didn't expect. And today on my tours, I see all these small business owners. They start small,
Start small.
and then they grow from there. So I think, you know there are they had vision. A leader often has some sort of vision, and
Right.
that vision gets honed and crafted and shaped. And then you see that final product. And it's a very attractive product. A leader, is attractive,
Right.
and you want to believe everything he or she says.
Uh-huh.
But I guess it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What's your
Right.
origin story? You didn't do it
Exactly.
all the time, you know? It used to be a big thing. It used to just be something that said, and I hope they say it more. It's like, oh, they came to the United States with nothing in their pocket.
Right.
You hear that story. That's all right, great. How did you build from there and get where you are now to the point where you are a leader?
Right.
So So if the leader is unwilling to say that they made mistakes,
Right.
and and
That's true.
you know, maybe they're not such a good leader.
You're
Uh,
probably in a cult when the leader says, "I never make mistakes."
right. I think it's like, again, be humble about it. You certainly made mistakes. So
That's awesome. Maybe a last question. What belief about yourself changed after you encountered this struggles in life and then make a big decision to start your own business? What changed about your beliefs?
there's so many changes. But
Right.
here's how I prefer to answer your question. Okay.
Sure.
At the very end of every year, I have my own personal tradition.
Uh-huh.
On December 1st, I write a card to
Right.
me, and I write in that card the thing I learned in the past year. And on December 31st, I mail that card to me.
Oh,
So it's mailed from 2025 and I receive it in 2026. And it's Dom from 2025, his advice to Dom in 2026. So I'm going to read to you exclusively, only on your show,
thank you so much.
this very important advice, very intimate advice from me to me.
Mhm.
Dear Dominic, that's my full. You could call me Dom, okay?
Right.
But dear Dominic, you know what you can do. You have done for others. Now do for you. Love, Dominic. And this is
Wow.
that I said to myself. So it's important to always be learning. And, I've certainly I faced, we didn't go into it, but during COVID, I never stopped.
Right.
And I adjusted, I adapted. I became a program director for a Japanese American fashion beauty bath brand.
Right.
I was a small business advisor for New York State Small Business Center. So I never stopped,
Right.
and that's that's just my nature. I keep on wanting to continue to write the story of my life that I want to read.
I love that. Thank you so much. And now we are in the closing moments of our show, our pioneer episode of season three. Dom, what is your final remarks for our listeners?
I said enough. No. Final remarks. Well, I would say, on my tours, the stars of my show are the people and businesses that we visit. I would say be the star of your own show. Stories are very, very powerful. Trillions and trillions of dollars are moved based on what one person says every day. And it's like, all right, it's very, very powerful. It starts with maybe a pen and paper, and you write your story. And then you shape it and keep on going. But always keep in mind that that story is very powerful. And in that story, you are the protagonist. You are the star of your show.
I love that.
Now,
Dom,
maybe,
thank
but
you. Thank you so much for being here. And to our audience, I appreciate your time. uh, Always remember that you are the right person to make a decision for yourself. Always believe in that. That's what I learned from Dom. And you can make mistakes, but it's your ability to make different decisions in your life that would shape your story. And one day, be a person that also inspires other people, just like Dom. In his tours, it's about other people. It's how you highlight other people, how you lift other people up in the end. And that's how you're going to get remembered by others. So thank you for joining us and see you the next episode.
thank you. It was an honor.